So I own a travel company called Sawyer Africa, and we organize travel throughout Africa for our clients. Just before the time that COVID hit, my business was finally in a place where I could afford to take a little bit of a step back and see how I could maybe start living my job as a little bit more of a lifestyle approach. And that was always the goal. I wanted to quit corporate so that I could actually live life more according to who I was and how I wanted to live it. And then of course, Corona came, and that put a big screeching halt onto all the plans, and especially a lot of the dreams. COVID was frightening in the beginning, but I think in a way quite a blessing, because I actually finally, for the first time in a very, very long time, had time to think. I wasn't running around, I wasn't running between clients or yoga or answering a million emails. That was soon to come when people suddenly started to cancel en masse and all of that, but there was actually time to kind of really think and to reevaluate where I was going. My kind of life plans had been put on hold, and I was living back at home with my folks because that's where I was when we went into lockdown in South Africa. And so it was hard, but through that time, I got to work out what I really wanted to be doing. And that was through a lot of self-reflection. It was through a lot of conversations with people like Joe and Paul, with my family, with my friends, people that really understood the essence of me. Fast forward, I think I was at home for about 6 months, and I eventually headed back down to Cape Town. And I couldn't help but feeling incredibly lost, even though I knew more of who I was, because there was just seemed so many more inherent hurdles in my way. And this is where the conversation with Joe and Paul really started to step up a notch. So I actually first met Joe teaching yoga, and I hosted a retreat of Joe's where she was the facilitator, and I was teaching meditation and yoga and breathwork in the morning. And the very first kind of lunch break we got, off I set with my big floppy safari hat and my backpack and my camera and trundled off into the bush. And I straight away in that moment, I think Joe looked at me and she said, "Tom Sawyer." And just, this kind of, mischievous little boy sitting into the bush, just happy as Larry, kind of going about his thing. And so that's always a nickname that Joe and Paul have had for me. And I think that really kind of helped to resonate who I was and what I was about in a way, because I've often said to clients of mine in the yoga teaching space, one of the biggest faults of humans is that we let go of that inner child. And I think for most of us that's true, and something I still battle with for sure. And so how do we find what our inner child is and what makes him happy? And for me, that's the bush. For me, that's overlanding. For me, that's photography. It's birds. It's Africa, really in a nutshell. And I needed to allow myself to explore that more, to allow that inner child to come out, to allow that happiness to come out. So this dream has probably been a dream of mine since I was probably a kid. I grew up reading books about Africa, about explorers, going to untold places, reading about the history of Africa. And I've always had that itch, but I've never really kind of like dug deep in towards it. I have helped plan numerous number of trips for all of my clients, and I've been very fortunate to travel all around Africa, but it was never quite the way that I wanted to explore Africa. It wasn't what resonated with me as a person and how I want to experience Africa and why I truly love Africa. It's the animals is one thing, the glorious sunsets and sunrises, the landscapes, but it's those small little nuances that really kind of make the trip, and in particular, I think, the people of Africa, and really allowing yourself to get to know them and to understand them, because once you've got that, this whole new world opens up. And there was all these things at play that I knew that I wanted to feel and experience, and I didn't want them in short little isolated experiences or journeys, that I wanted to actually get in my car and head north and not really have an idea of where I was going. But being the type of person that I always found reasons why I couldn't or shouldn't. I would look at the money being a reason why I couldn't do it. I was looking at the car not being adequate enough in terms of why I could do it. I was looking at what would people think about me doing this and quitting my life and going and disappearing for a while. And I think that dream really stepped up a notch when I had the opportunity to meet first Joe about 3 years ago, and then eventually found out that her partner was Paul, and he made dreams into reality for all overlanders from around the world. And they kept on just slowly coaxing me in towards realizing that my dream trip didn't have to stay a dream. It could become a reality. And ultimately got me to the place where on the 4th of July of 2021, I was in the car heading off on my very own expedition for a couple of months. I didn't quite know what to expect going on this expedition. You know, never doing a trip of this magnitude before meant that there was quite a lot that we needed to have organized and understood before we headed off. Possibly none more so than the fact we were traveling during COVID and not knowing what the regulations were going to be, how the regulations were rather going to change, what are the border crossing protocols, where are we going to find COVID tests in far-flung places. So there was a lot of work that needs to be done up front. And I think it's something that Paul really does well at kind of pushing home is if you can go out as organized as you can before you head on the trip, you have less likelihood of failing on the trip. And there's nothing wrong in encountering issues along the way, but it's about how you obviously face them on the trip that makes the difference. And if you feel prepared for it, then you respond better to it. So we had, I think it was only about 3 months to put this entire trip together. And for the most part, everything worked out quite well. I was not driving a car with the name Toyota in front of it. But we were very well prepared for the trip, thanks to a lot of weekends spent building the car up, working with Paul, getting it ready for what was needed for the trip that we needed it to be. There was one piece of the puzzle I think that was still definitely missing, and that was knowing that I could do a trip like this by myself, but finding someone to be able to do it with me would just make it that much more memorable. And so sure enough, I was very fortunate to meet Stacey at the beginning of the year. She was the most amazing travel companion. She managed to climb under small holes to build us out of quite sandy situations. She was an exceptional cook, and whatever we encountered, she took it in her stride. And I just know that without having that person, without having Stacey join me on that trip, it would never have been the same. The places we explored and the memories we created are something that we will cherish forever. We had an incredible 20,000 kilometer trip through all of Southern Africa as far as the source of Zambezi and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Got to stay in some incredible places, explore some untouched corners of Africa, but I didn't quite know how significant the change would be to me in that time that I was going. Joe and Paul stressed how much change would occur during the trip, maybe not necessarily realizing it whilst you're on it, but definitely realizing once you come back that there was this substantial shift, and that a lot of people might not even understand how you felt once you got back. So it was a little bit disruptive coming back initially, and I think especially after a trip of this nature, you already feel maybe a little bit misunderstood or ungrounded because no one's experienced what you have and no one's gone through what you have. And now you're having to come back into this world where there's all these kind of external energies and stimulation and kind of outside influences, and make sense of all of that and then try to settle back into a new rhythm. And I think I would be lying if I told you exactly how I've changed completely just right now, because this is very recent for us. I do now know what it is that I want to be doing though. And it's just reassured me of that kind of Tom Sawyer type personality. I've always felt that I've had to be in corporate, that I had to wear a suit, that I had to do something that society thought was a proper job, whatever that may mean. And now I've realized actually it's okay not doing that. And I can be successful and I can be happy in doing what I'm doing. And so this trip, if nothing else, has just reassured me and just shown me which direction I need to be going in. And that is sharing my passion of Africa to people and helping people to follow their dreams of exploring Africa. And that's what I'm going to be doing more of, so that I can also go into Africa more, of course. It's not all altruistic. I want to be going more and exploring more, but that ultimately is what I want to be more. I don't resonate with city life as much as I used to. I don't need the trappings of what the city offers. I want to be out in the bush, living simply, living happily with the landscapes and the people of Africa.
Thank you so much for watching this film. These films are made possible because of your support. So if you'd like to see more, please click on the link below and become a patron on Patreon.